Our next storyteller is a program and development officer from International Bridges to Justice. He's devoted his entire career to human rights. That's ranged from everything from fighting for prisoners' rights on death row in the US to assisting with the prosecution of war crimes at The Hague. His story and his background is unbelievable, and he's a great person. Please welcome Andrew.
All around the world, countries have laws on the books that protect the rights of their people. However, there is a fissure, a fault line, that divides what the law says and what happens in reality on the ground. Now, an example of this is torture. Torture is forbidden in most countries, yet it is one of the most used forms of police investigation in the world today. My name is Antranik Krikor Ozanian, and my organization, International Bridges to Justice, works to bridge that divide between the law and reality. We believe that rule of law is the foundation, the very bedrock of a stable society. And we support local lawyers working to defend the rights of people in their communities who are trapped in broken criminal justice systems. We have lawyers in over 40 countries, yet we find ourselves asking, how can we scale? The demand for our work is outstripping the resources that we have available. We don't have time to wait. We need to make access to justice a reality right now. The answer is technology. I'm working on a project called the JusticeHub. And the logic behind it is that system scaling is so much more powerful than simple organizational scale. What do I mean by that? I mean that to change a system, you can't just look at part of that system. You have to look at the whole thing. And that is why, with the JusticeHub, we're not just looking at bar associations, lawyers, ministries of justice, and judges. We're actually looking at all of the people in society, ordinary people, faith groups, youth. Everyone has something to contribute for justice. Now, I didn't always think that I could do the kind of work that I do. I remember reading, watching some of the stories, the amazing stories that courageous human rights, people working in human rights do all around the world. And I was so inspired. I remember watching and thinking, wow, that's exactly what I want to do, but I don't want to do it over there. I didn't want to get shot at. And honestly, some of these places, they frighten me, and rightly so, they should. And nevertheless, my conviction, my determination to do human rights law, it led me to my organization, IBJ. And I remember I confessed that secret to my CEO, Karen Che, who's actually sat just over there. And I was actually surprised at her response. She said, Andrew, people like you don't want to get shot at, but actually, you are a bridge that connects with others like yourself who have a passion, but they don't think that they could work in difficult environments like that. And in that moment, I actually realized that what I thought was a weakness was actually one of my biggest strengths. So if I can do it, you can too. And so this is kind of a call to action. I don't care if you're not a lawyer. It doesn't matter. You have something to contribute for justice. Whether that's collaboration, solution sharing, or targeted assistance, financial or otherwise, you have something to contribute for justice. As the internet expands, even lawyers working in rural parts of the world are now getting access to smartphones day to day. For the first time, these defenders can be part of a living, breathing network that brings legal development into the fourth industrial revolution of big data and data analytics. Together, we can harness the power of technology to bridge the fault lines in legal systems around the world. Thank you.
Yeah! Did it. How do you feel? Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting. I mean, I love international bridges to justice. It's something that I've always personally been a really big fan of.
That's really great to hear.
Yeah. I just love the work that you do. And actually, you didn't describe it in your talk today, but you were talking to me before about equilibrium change in IBJ's work, in specific Cambodia. So I was hoping you could just share with everyone, if you can remember what it was before and through IBJ's work where it is now.
Yeah, absolutely. So Cambodia, when we first went there, we actually saw that, and it's quite sad actually, but we actually saw that torture was not this kind of horrific thing that people were so upset by. This was just standard routine. This was just a really kind of almost boring kind of process by which the police would arrest people, they would torture, they would get their confession, and then case closed. And it was just a systematic process. Now, what we realized was that you can't actually change this by just looking at one particular group. Our solution is early access to trained legal assistance, even for those, especially for those who can't afford it. And we realized that we can't just do that by just talking to lawyers. The equilibrium change that you, as you put it, it's something that can only be achieved by looking at the whole ecosystem of people within the legal system. So it's not just lawyers, it's the judges too. Because many of these judges, they just receive these cases, it's a process, it's what they're used to seeing. So they don't see any different. And all of a sudden, after our trainings and after our encouragement, lawyers are standing up and saying, well, hold on a second. You know, this guy's been tortured. You can clearly see the marks. Surely this doesn't work. The law in Cambodia says that this shouldn't be allowed. So, you know, what do we do? And after a while, the judges, they actually thought, well, yeah, that makes sense. And that's what we mean by for equilibrium change. It's about a mindset shift. Of all of the different levels within that environment. So, yeah.
Cool. And also on a personal question, just in the broader field of human rights, What is your perspective on our generation and younger generations' engagement with human rights and social justice? Would you say there's been a spiked interest? Would you say there's less of an interest? Just what's your general feeling on the passion or where it's headed?
Yeah, I mean, it's great now because the age of globalization and of information, social media, you actually see all of the things that are going on in the world today. And you know, your parents raise you in a certain way, and you know what's wrong and right most of the time, and you watch these things on television and you're shocked, you're appalled, you're like, what is going on over there? That makes absolutely no sense. And then you have an outlet for it now, whereas before you might have just spoken about it to your friends at school or whatever, and you might have been like, hey, that was weird on the radio last night, you know. But now it's like social media, you can instantly engage with that and say, hey, that's awful. You know, let's do something about that. You know, let's do something. And I think that's possible now, whereas it wasn't before. And I think that's why more and more youth are now getting engaged with human rights.
Technology, it's the future.
Exactly.
Thank you, Andrew.